Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much for the organizers bringing such an interesting and necessary event to life. And geospatial community in the UK always have been a very fertile breeding ground for future and new ideas. As I'm standing here in front of you as Vice President of the European Association of Aerial Survey Industries, a couple of words to the organization. Since formation in 2019, we have been growing constantly. In today, we are representing about 50 members and associates across the European aerial survey companies. And you see the numbers here speak for themselves. We represent the majority. EASI focus on companies that operate crewed aerial platforms, so meaning the traditional aerial survey, which today produces most of the high-resolution data used for planning, monitoring, administration in Europe. Now, Seppi said speed dating, so few people here know me, and I want to change this. This is why I put this slide in here. My professional life, I practice as a consultant for geospatial companies. As a book author, keynote speaker, I focus on strategy for geospatial industry and was happy to accept a position on the board of trustees for PLACE. Next to this, I organize Camino workshops on the Camino de Santiago for burned-out executives. So you can consider that. In the picture, you see also the actual moment of formation of EASI with the founders. The two best-looking people are actually here in the room, the ones in the center. In corporate life, I worked at Leica Geosystems as Vice President Business Development for the Airborne Group, and before that, I was leading the Danish-based COWI mapping, which some of you might still remember as CAMSAX. Now, to the topic of the day. In 2026, I call this curve the magical curve of everything, as we find in pretty much any presentation of any industry. Over time, most technical developments, also in geospatial data industry, have followed this curve. The choice and quantity of data from Earth observation, processing power available, speed and depth of interpretation tools, time resolution, revisiting rates, especially in quality, both accuracy and resolution, have reached superhuman levels. Now, that's Moore's law, isn't it? Well, are we there already? Yeah, no. Well, I think I was one click too late on everything. Now, that's an important one. This week, I saw an interesting talk of CNN's Fareed Zakaria on the future of war. He described especially the appearance of a new architecture which supports, as he calls it, mass-produced accuracy. At the core of the orchestration is the orchestration of cheap autonomous systems, AI assistance, affordable and available EO datasets, resilient communications, integrated sensors and cyber tools, leading to even further acceleration to compress time. He cited a US Air Force experiment in which machine teams outperformed human-only analyst teams by magnitudes. Sounds familiar? All right. Geospatial data is an instrument for generating decisions. As our world gets more complex and technology evolves, the number of decisions based on geospatial data will necessarily follow the magic curve. However, as human actors are physically limited to their 5 senses, with the ability of keeping up with the data stream will necessarily reach a plateau, which I have called the frontier of human decision capacity. To retain all benefits of the positive development, Olive, we will have to ask which information needs human cognition and which can be delegated to software agents, robots, and operational systems. To my forecast. As business school teacher, which I'm also doing, we earn our money by explaining the world in 2x2 matrices. Here, I correlate the use of raw data or interpreted information to the left with the main use by humans or machines. The aerial surveying industry has the following development perspective. In the upper left, you see expert interpretation. This is where most legacy revenue sits. This quadrant does not disappear, but it becomes less differentiated over time. It will also move from one-off product to services, like subscription services to update the geospatial data, and the primary users are and will be analysts, planners, surveyors, and so on. Today we are moving more into the lower left, human decision support. Growth will first move here. More sophisticated information knowledge will be delivered. Primary users are decision makers, executives, city managers, and so on. The purpose is to understand the matter and decide what to do. Then, to the upper right, machine-readable world state. This will allow us to increase the speed and wealth of the information and knowledge. For the industry, this is most important quadrant strategically. Whoever controls the machine-usable, trusted, refreshable world model will sit closest to the future value chain. And in the lower right, we find the final automated decision layer. In this quadrant, geospatial is no longer a reference product, but it becomes part of a customer's operating logic. And the purpose is to act without waiting for human interpretation in routine cases, hopefully. Now, what do I think, how do we consume the data? Note that in the timeline up there, I talk about mainstream adoption and not the first piloted. Generally, humans will need information as visual, summarized, contextual, conversational, explainable. This is best supported by some kind of maps, visualization, timelines for change, alerts, narratives for decisions, and simulations. In the coming 10 years, I believe that humans will mostly still access raw data when needed, but not as the default, with dashboards and views. Then in 20 years, humans will generally consume what changed and why it matters, not all the data, with scenario tools and co-pilots. And I talk about general adoption. And in 30 years, I believe that the human role will have shifted from analysis towards judgment, mostly using audit tools, policy and governance tools, ethics, which is best supported what the machines then do. Machines will necessarily use APIs, tiles, object stores, streams, scene graphs, task-oriented features. And the next 10 years, it will stay like that and will always be at the base. In 20 years, we should have transitioned to a general adoption of continuous state updates, semantic geometry, task-specific world models, while in 30 years, I believe we should be at hierarchical world models, predictive spatial memory, learned spatial representations, and direct machine-to-machine geospatial services. Now, I had 2 co-discussion points. I was asked for that. Maybe it's not so visual, but for the industry, we want to know which technical developments could be prioritized to stay on the positive part of the interaction of machine and humans, and generally, very, very generally, which legal, political, and technical barriers must be removed to enable the development of a healthy human-machine ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.